Junta Shiraishi is just an ordinary high school student, but people call him the Invisible Man. Not because of magic or anything supernatural, but simply because his presence is so faint, people barely notice he exists. He's so unnoticeable that in his middle school graduation photo, the school added a picture of him afterward, despite the fact that he was actually there, standing among his classmates. Now in high school, Shiraishi dreams of being the main character in a typical romance story, but reality is far from what he hoped for. Instead of becoming a romantic lead, he ends up like an NPC, completely ignored by everyone around him. That is, until one day, while he's casually on his phone, a girl suddenly takes a picture of him. That girl is Nagisa Kubo, the most popular student in school. This moment leaves Shiraishi confused. Why could she see him when no one else can, even if he walks right in front of them? Unlike Shiraishi, who constantly complains about being unnoticed, Kubo actually prefers to stay low-key, just to avoid being asked to do things by the teachers. Then, during class, Kubo tells Shiraishi to stand on his chair and strike an embarrassing pose. He doesn't want to, but she threatens to share the photo she just took. So, he has no choice. But just his luck. At that exact moment, the entire class suddenly notices him, and Shiraishi ends up drowning in embarrassment.
Wow, 立っちゃった。すごい。
Shiraishi, 座れ。
Because of Kubo's annoying demand, Shiraishi couldn't help but feel irritated. He kept turning his gaze away in frustration, but that annoyance quickly melted the moment Kubo gently touched his cheek.
何？
置いてくよ。待って。
何なんだ。
Later that day after school, Kubo's friends jokingly said they were lucky to have seen Shiraishi twice. There's even a local legend that spotting Shiraishi is just as rare and lucky as getting a compliment from your parents. Kubo began to wonder why she was so different from everyone else. Why could she see him so easily, when no one else could? The next day, Kubo approached Shiraishi with an ominous aura surrounding her. She said she was upset with him. When asked why, she blamed Shiraishi, despite him doing absolutely nothing. As punishment, Kubo decided to sit on his lap. But instead of suffering, Shiraishi secretly enjoyed it.
そのまさかです。思った通りバレてないね。
そういう問題じゃない。柔らかいし、やっぱり柔らかい。
白石くん？
完全に思考がショートしていた。
Then, one day at the park, Kubo ran into Shiraishi by chance. He told her he had planned to buy a newly released game, but got distracted asking for tissues along the way, and completely forgot about the game. Out of curiosity, Kubo snapped a picture of him. She wanted to test whether her phone camera could detect Shiraishi's presence, like a ghost. And just like a spirit, the camera didn't pick him up. So, Kubo stepped closer, trying to get a clearer photo.
はーい。じゃあカメラ見て。
一緒に撮るの？
白石くんにも確認してもらわなきゃ。私の勝ち。
Afterward, she asked for his phone number so she could send him the picture. That night, Shiraishi couldn't stop looking at the photo. He felt genuinely happy, because for the first time, he had exchanged contact info with a classmate. The next day, after gym class, Shiraishi tried to avoid Kubo, worried that his sweat might smell, but Kubo walked right up to him and sniffed his armpit, surprised at how good he smelled. Then she handed him a tissue to wipe his sweat. At first, Shiraishi stayed calm, but after hearing what Kubo whispered next, his whole body trembled in shock.
ああ、いやね。私と一緒の匂いだなって思って。お揃いだね。
同じ。
The next day, Shiraishi went to a bookstore to buy his favorite manga. But once again, his invisible presence became a problem. He couldn't even trigger the automatic door sensor. Even when he waved his hand like everyone else, the door still wouldn't open. Meanwhile, Kubo, who had been watching from nearby, decided to step in and help. Not only that, she even offered to join him while he shopped. Inside the store, Kubo got interested in the manga Shiraishi picked up. But when she went to look for it, the first volume was already sold out. So Shiraishi offered to lend her his own copy. They ended up going to Shiraishi's house, and surprisingly, their homes were actually close to each other. The only reason they'd never run into each other before was because Shiraishi always left for school way too early. After learning that, Kubo made a decision. She would start waking up earlier so she could walk to school with him. She even went the extra mile, changing her hairstyle and wearing her older sister's perfume, hoping to make a good impression. During breakfast, her sister Akina noticed something was different. And just from her expression, Akina immediately realized Kubo was crushing on someone.
もう行かなきゃ。そんなそんな。今日は何もない日なんでしょ？顔に出すぎだって渚。お姉ちゃん。
Blushing, Kubo greeted Shiraishi. But to her surprise, he didn't even notice the changes she made. He just responded as if everything was normal. A few days later, Shiraishi went to a bookstore far from home to buy a poster that came bundled with a special manga magazine. But there was a problem. The magazine's cover had a terrifying illustration, and he didn't want anyone he knew to see him buying it. As he searched, he stumbled upon an adult magazine right next to the one he was looking for. Driven by curiosity and a thirst for knowledge, Shiraishi decided to take a quick peek for educational purposes. But just as he reached for it, he got caught. And the worst part? The store clerk who caught him was none other than Kubo's older sister, Akina.
ちょっとお姉さん、その本は君には早い気がするな。隠しても無駄だぞ。
Like her little sister, Akina had a mischievous personality. Not wanting to dig himself into a deeper hole, Shiraishi quickly paid for the magazine he came for and left. Later, Akina noticed that Shiraishi had dropped his student ID card, and since both he and Kubo went to the same school, she asked her sister to return it for him. But not before telling Kubo everything that had happened in the store.
推しの子巨乳だったな。いや、若いね。巨乳。
The next day at school, Kubo showed Shiraishi his ID card, but instead of handing it back right away, she started teasing him, asking about the kind of things he liked.
白石くんさ、胸が大きいのが好きなの？
何何？
胸が大きいのが好きなの？
は？
はい、これ生徒手帳。白石くんのエッチ。
On Christmas Day, Kubo invited Shiraishi to hang out with her. Shiraishi, being punctual as always, arrived way earlier than their scheduled meeting time. After waiting for hours, Kubo finally showed up and asked Shiraishi if they could exchange gifts. But Shiraishi hadn't brought anything, so Kubo gave him 15 minutes to go find a present for her. At the shopping mall, Shiraishi was overwhelmed. He had no idea what Kubo liked, and the time limit only made things worse. In the end, he bought a pair of gloves. Even though it wasn't fancy, Kubo still appreciated it and smiled warmly at his choice. The next day, Shiraishi was tasked with babysitting his little brother, Seita. He decided to take him to the park. There, Seita kept imitating transformation poses from his favorite anime. And being the proud otaku big brother he was, Shiraishi couldn't ignore it. He jumped in and gave his brother a full-on transformation tutorial, anime style, but just his luck, Kubo happened to witness the whole thing. Not only that, she recorded it.
変身。
かっこいい。
変身。
返事。
お、変身。
返事。ごめんごめん。続けて。
February 14th, Valentine's Day. A day full of hope for the romantically desperate. Most guys put on their best behavior, hoping to receive chocolate from girls. But Shiraishi? He couldn't care less. After all, every year on Valentine's Day, he'd never once received chocolate. It wasn't bitterness. It was just the reality of being invisible to everyone. But this year, something strange happened. Under his desk, he found a box of chocolate with no name on it. Soon after, Kubo appeared. She told him the chocolate was meant for him, and that the person who made it had put their heart into it. She urged Shiraishi to eat it right away, But as usual, Shiraishi stayed clueless. He still wondered who could have given it to him.
それ白石くん宛てだよ。じゃあそういうことで。
結局誰なんだ？
誰なんだ？教えないよだ。
Then came a flashback showing how Kubo made the chocolate at home. She wasn't very skilled in the kitchen, so she searched for tutorials online and followed every step. But the results weren't pretty. Her first attempt looked more like something from a goat than a dessert. Thankfully, her sister Akina helped her fix the recipe, and eventually, Kubo managed to make a proper, delicious chocolate. That was the one she secretly gave to Shiraishi. Meanwhile, back in the present, Shiraishi was still trying to solve the mystery of his anonymous Valentine. Even though people rarely noticed him, Shiraishi found comfort in that. He could eat lunch wherever he wanted, undisturbed, but not today. Little Kubo showed up and interrupted his peaceful break. Since her friends weren't around, she'd gone looking for Shiraishi to have lunch together. She seemed especially curious about his homemade lunch, so she proposed they trade meals. When Kubo tried to feed him, Shiraishi got flustered. After school, Kubo went out to hang with her friends. While they chatted, one of them asked if anyone had recently caught her interest. Without hesitation, Kubo admitted she was interested in Shiraishi. Her friend Tamao was completely stunned. Why would Kubo fall for someone as strange as Shiraishi? Kubo didn't take that lightly. She firmly told Tamao to stop looking down on Shiraishi. He might seem weird, but he had a kind side that most people never got to see. The next morning, Shiraishi went to school early. He wanted to be the first one in class, just to enjoy the quiet. But when he opened the door, he was surprised to see Kubo already inside, listening to music. She handed him one of her earbuds and sat close beside him, letting him share the song. Shiraishi couldn't believe it. He, a complete background character, was sharing earphones with the most popular girl in school. Then Kubo asked him to play one of his favorite tracks. At first, he hesitated. Most of his music came from anime or video games, and he didn't think Kubo would like it. But she insisted, so in the end, he gave in. With midterm exams approaching, Shiraishi's mom warned him not to slack off. She even threatened to confiscate his games and manga unless he scored better than the neighbor's kid. Motivated by fear and love for his hobbies, Shiraishi spent his lunch breaks in the library, studying hard. One day, Kubo showed up and offered to tutor him. Unlike her usual teasing self, she was calm and serious this time. She told Shiraishi that she'd never get in the way of someone trying to improve themselves. Her words stayed with him. When the exams were finally over, Shiraishi was thrilled. His grades were good enough and his games were safe. Just then, Kubo suddenly appeared from behind him, like a ghost. It was raining outside, and Shiraishi hadn't brought an umbrella. So Kubo offered to share hers, but when he declined, she handed it to him and said she'd run home in the rain instead. Feeling guilty, Shiraishi ran after her, just as Kubo had hoped. As they walked together under the same umbrella, Shiraishi's face turned bright red. He still couldn't believe it. Here he was, side by side with the most popular girl in school. From a distance, Akina, the older sister, spotted them. The scene reminded her of her own youth, back when love was new and full of possibilities. Another day at school, while the rest of the class paid attention to the lesson, Shiraishi, out of boredom, started fiddling with his pen. He took it apart and played with the spring, but it suddenly flew across the room and disappeared. No matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find it. Meanwhile, Kubo just stared at him, clearly unimpressed. Things got worse when the teacher announced a surprise test. And Shiraishi, still penniless. Thankfully, Kubo came to the rescue. She lent him her pen, though it had a cute bunny figure on top. As a self-proclaimed manly man, Shiraishi hesitated. Using something that cute could ruin his image. But when he saw that Kubo also used the same pen, his doubts vanished. With a smile on his face, he picked up the pen and gave the test everything he had. The next day, Shiraishi went shopping with his little brother. While walking around, someone suddenly surprised him from behind. It was Kubo, but she wasn't alone. Her older sister and cousin, Saki, were with her. At that moment, something unexpected happened. Little Seita experienced love at first sight. He was completely charmed by Saki's beauty, so much so that he gave her the most precious thing he had, a tiny pebble. Seeing this, Akina, Kubo's older sister, decided to help them get closer. So she suggested they all go to the park together. As planned, the next day they had a little picnic. Seita was having the time of his life, especially when he found out that the food was made by Saki. With a goofy smile, he kept stealing glances at her. Just like his little brother, Shiraishi also started getting flirty. He complimented the smoked meat Kubo had prepared, which left her blushing and flustered. But while the two pairs enjoyed their lovey-dovey moment, Akina, the single one among them, could only drink sake in bitter silence. Feeling left out, she decided to crash the mood by teasing Shiraishi. She playfully said, "Instead of dating a girl who hasn't grown up yet, why not choose someone more mature, like me?" That line ticked Kubo off. She gave her sister a proper scolding that hit straight to the heart. Akina was left mentally defeated. Today marked the start of Shiraishi's second year in high school. Even though a full year had passed, nothing about his life had really changed. He still felt invisible, like no one even noticed his existence. As he entered his new classroom and looked for a seat, someone suddenly greeted him. It was Kubo. Whether it was fate, luck, or maybe even a bribe, they somehow ended up in the same class again. After class, their homeroom teacher announced that there would be a physical fitness test tomorrow. Kubo looked over at Shiraishi and noticed that he'd gotten a bit taller. She asked him about it, but Shiraishi misinterpreted her question and looked at a very different part of her body instead. Smooth move, champ. Later that day, after most students had gone home, Kubo took Shiraishi to a quiet spot. There, they decided to measure their heights to see who was taller. Kubo held the ruler and had Shiraishi stand against the wall. Then, it was her turn. But when Shiraishi moved in close to measure her, Kubo got super flustered and quickly ran off. Turns out she wasn't the only one making hearts race. Being that close made her blush just as much as him. On another day, Kubo invited Shiraishi to watch a movie together. He was thrilled. This could be his very first date. But on the train ride there, things got a bit intense. The car was packed and the two were pressed close together. Shiraishi instinctively moved to shield Kubo from the crowd. Their bodies were inches apart, and to make things worse, Kubo kept teasing him. Shiraishi had to fight hard just to keep his thoughts in check. During the movie, Kubo didn't watch the screen. She was more focused on Shiraishi's expressions. Shiraishi explained that he usually hides how he feels because he's embarrassed to show it. But Kubo disagreed. She said she could always read his feelings, even without seeing his face. After the movie, Shiraishi walked her home. Kubo asked him how he felt about the day. He replied honestly, he was happy because he got to experience something completely new. Hearing that made Kubo smile. She asked him to hang out again sometime. Shiraishi, still shy, quietly agreed and walked off, leaving Kubo glowing with joy. Then came April 25th, Shiraishi's birthday. While most people would be excited to celebrate their special day, Shiraishi felt nothing. To him, it was just another normal day. Even on his birthday, he still felt like an invisible NPC, someone whose presence didn't matter to anyone. During class, his stomach suddenly growled, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Embarrassed, Shiraishi tried to pretend nothing happened, but Kubo noticed. She handed him a piece of chocolate, and when he looked at the wrapper, he saw the words "Happy Birthday" written on it. That wasn't all. Kubo also gave him a small gift, a Godzilla plushie. Shiraishi was genuinely touched. It was the first time someone remembered his birthday. To hide how emotional he was, he pretended to fall asleep, so Kubo wouldn't see his blushing face. Then the scene cuts to a flashback, back to when Kubo and Shiraishi were still first-year students. At that time, their classmate Tamao had shown Kubo a graduation photo from Shiraishi's middle school. She also talked about how incredibly hard it was to notice him back then, as if he just blended into the background. That small moment sparked something in Kubo. She became curious, and soon, that curiosity turned into a friendship. Day by day, they started spending more time together, and slowly, that bond grew stronger, leading to the close relationship they have now.